So, hey, what's up, guys? I'm not going to belabor this point, of the fact that Donald Trump won the presidency, but I just want to say a couple of things. As I'm trolling through Facebook and looking at some of the responses people are having, I'm gonna actually replay. I'm actually gonna like do the shared post of what one guy was talking about, how like black folks we got to save ourselves. And this relates to what I'm going to apply to everyone. Listen, let me explain something to you guys. Hey, what's up? What's up? Awesome, awesome, William Jr. So here's what I'm going to say to you guys. If you want to change anything in your life, you can't. We have to take responsibility for ourselves. We got to. It doesn't matter who gets in the president. And don't get me wrong. Depending on who gets in the presidency, it does make some things easier than others. It does make certain policies and than others. Does make certain things in life easier. But at the same time, we can't just rely on the president to change our lives. Like I'm looking at. This is the first time in any history of presidential elections where afterwards I'm looking on Facebook, people are protesting in Phoenix, New York, and Philadelphia. Phoenix, New York, Philadelphia. There's at least Chicago. There's four different cities where people are protesting. Now, I'll be honest. If Hillary Clinton won, I don't think there'll be as many protests. Um, I'm just gonna say this once. I'm gonna say this once, and I'm gonna leave it alone, and just assume that what I'm about to say is not true, and that maybe I'm just a very um, uh, uh, what's the word, cynical person. If someone were to convince me that this election was rigged, I would actually believe them. I would believe. I just cannot understand how Trump won. Given that what I just don't. Given that what he stood for, some of the things he said, um, the fact there were like Oregon. I mean, I don't know. I just don't understand how he won. But I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna get away from my conspiracy theorist thoughts and just say, you know what, he won fair and square. I'm just gonna say it, accept the loss. Sometimes in life, when you lose, it sucks to lose. It sucks. Sometimes you can't understand how you lost. There's been plenty of times in history, even in sports, where the reigning dynasty team got eliminated from the championship from the least person you can even suspect. I remember back in '96 with Princeton University, my alma mater, we beat UCLA, the returning champs. Are you kidding me? No one expected us to beat them in that game. So in this, I don't know. I don't know whether it was rigged or what, but it looks like no one's investigating that. No one's bringing up that. No one's looking into it. So he's the president. We got to accept that. Now, here's what I'm going to say. Even though we all know that he said some racist things. He has some racist thoughts. He's against any type of minority you can imagine yourself that you're part of. We all know that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Kim. Um, um, my gosh, I just never seen a presidency where people are so. Even when George W. Bush won against Al Gore, there weren't protests. People weren't crazy. I don't know. It just is. I'm even at a loss for words. I'm at a loss for words. I honestly don't think there would have been this many words online of sadness that Trump is president. I mean, that if Hillary was president, I just don't understand. I honestly don't even understand. It really, wow, wow. It just, I don't, I don't understand. Wow, that many people. I'm just giving you guys a real response. That many people really feel that you can say, grab them by the you know what, that you can say that I've actually assaulted women. You can do all this stuff and still be president of the United States. Wow. So, all right. But let my better self speak for it. I'm going to let my better self speak. I mean, and some of the racist things that he said, and some of the things he said against women that he said in the past, and he still is president of the United States. I was talking to somebody, and these are just my own personal thoughts. Um, Sometimes we think, and I'm guilty of this. I live in the Northeast, Pennsylvania, very close to Philly, very close to New York, and I guess my circle of friends, I assume since all of my circle of friends are like pro Hillary, and I have a large circle of friends. Like I'm talking about, I'm part of like the CrossFit fitness community. I'm part of the medical community. I'm part of minority community. I'm literally always interacting, jumping from community, and a large majority of my acquaintances and colleagues, people I know, very few Trump supporters. Now, what I tell people, we got to remember this. Even though, for instance, when it even comes to African Americans, we only make up 15% of the population. But when you live in an area like on the Northeast, like Pennsylvania, New York, and Philadelphia, we forget even though we're the loudest part of the country, we're still a small part of the country. That's what I was trying to explain to somebody. That's why I tried to explain why, why Kanye West was angry that, Beyonce didn't win Artist of the Year a few years ago. And what I tried to explain to people, much like this election, yeah, New York, Philadelphia, we're the largest part of the country, but there's a whole big section of the country called the Midwest and West Coast. Like it's a huge part of the country you don't really hear about. There's states you even forget exist. There's states that no one puts in movies, no one comes from that's famous. There are states that people leave those states and go to other states to make it in this world, but there's still a large amount of people in those states. And I think we forget about the fact that, yeah, New York and Philadelphia, we're all loud over here, but there's a huge part of the country where there is no black folks, there's no Hispanics. There's a huge part of this country that's very conservative that we forget about. And we're reminded every once in a while that these states exist when people like Taylor Swift wins the most popular artist award over Beyonce, who we hear mostly on the radio, but we're only on the East Coast. We only hear Beyonce on the radio because we're on the East Coast. There's a huge midsection, the Midwest, that hears Taylor Swift, and that's why Taylor Swift beat Beyonce this year to this election. We're over here because we're so diverse, culturally diverse, and we have black, Hispanic, we have all these, wonderful diversity, races, and we forget there's a big section in the middle of the country where there's no black folks. We only make up 15% of the population, and we're in pocketed areas. I still meet people. Let me tell you something. I still meet people to this day. I'm not going to say this woman's name because she's an awesome woman, and the fact that she even brought it to my attention, but there's still people today. One woman, and please don't take this the wrong way because I don't want it to sound all sexist or sexual. There's one woman, it's funny, I was talking to her after I came from the meeting. She says, you know what? You're the first black friends I ever had. She's 25. She says where she lives, there's no black people. She really doesn't have any black friends. I said, hey, okay, now you got some black friends. And she was all happy. I said, guess what? I hugged her. She never hugged a black person before. Here she is in her late 20s, never had any black friends, never really interacted with black friends, and she hugged a black. I was the first black person she ever hugged in her entire life. So that's what I'm saying. We have to remember there's a large part of this country, in my opinion. I'm sorry if I offend anybody. That really doesn't really matter that he has these thoughts and says these things about Muslims. He says these thoughts about minorities. I'm talking about black, Hispanic, the lesbian, bisexual, gay, transgender community. It doesn't matter. There's a large, big section of the country that's very like, what's the word I want to look for? Because I don't want to offend anybody if you're listening to me, who are very non-culturally diverse, who fit his demographic. I'm sorry, I'm going to say the word, who are very white, conservative, very straight up and down, who support everything that Donald Trump says and all the stuff he says about women and all those races. Oh, it's not a big deal to them. They make up most of America, guys. They make up most of America. And that's how he won. If you want evidence of what I'm saying is true, how in the world did he win this election when you had people campaigning, having parties, anti-Trump parties? Guys, why? Because we're the minority. We're still a small portion of the population. There's a whole big section of the country that makes up most of this country. Look at the map. Even my son, he's in second grade. He brought home a map for class. They had to color in the map of what happened during the electoral debate. I mean, during for the electoral votes. There's a map, and I'm sorry, I'm not political. I'm a scientist, not a politician. But that has the red and blue states, and they colored in the red and blue states. And he colored that today in school today and brought it home to me. And it's literally a replica of what you will find on CNN. So we got to remember that. Now, having said that, Having said that, there's a point in life that we just have to accept the fact that he's president and just have to say, you know what, I'm going to accept responsibility for my own life. He's president. I can see that. But if my life, if I'm trying to make something of my life, I got to take full responsibility. You know what? I got to do whatever I can to go back to school, get my degree, get my high school diploma, college diploma, my master's degree. I got to do whatever I can to hustle to start up my own business and get whatever funding, whatever rules Donald Trump comes in. Okay, I'm gonna play under those rules to get funding for my own business. You know, I got to do whatever I can for my family and and actually make sure my community is safe. So we have to take responsibility for what happens to our lives because even though he's president of the United States and we're not happy with that, it makes no sense to protest at this point. It makes no sense to go ahead. We could cry. Let's cry for 24 hours. 24 hours, we have to write the cry. Oh, Donald Trump. After that, let's get over it and let's get back to business, guys. Let's get back to business. Let's stop posting about, oh, it sucks that Donald Trump's president. We got to take responsibility for our own actions because you can't blame anybody but yourselves. If you don't have a job, you have to take responsibility. The first rules of the 7 habits of highly effective people is to be proactive. You got to walk into life like everything is your fault and your responsibility. So regardless if Donald Trump is president, if you don't have health insurance, it's your fault. If you don't have a job, it's your fault. If if you're I don't know, if you're not happy with your health insurance, you can't get adequate coverage, it's your fault, not Donald Trump's fault. If you can't get funding for college, it's your fault. You got to operate in life like it's all you. It's all you. I hate it. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm Republican, but we got to remember, even with Donald Trump as president, it's still 10 times better for me than the 60s and 70s. I was talking to somebody else and saying that, yeah, racism is still bad. Don't get me wrong, racism is still here to stay. But I'm coming from a standpoint as an African American physician, who's always in positions where I'm leading white people and I earn their respect. I'm in a position where I lead white people. Okay? When I'm in the emergency room, I'm the emergency room physician in charge, and most of the nurses and techs are white people. Most of the doctors who I call or come in are white people. So what I'm trying to say and make a point to you is that if we was in the 60s or 70s, I wouldn't even be a doctor. If we was in the 60s or 70s, no one would be listening to me. So what I'm saying is I'm in areas in my life where I'm doing things now and that are possible that would not have been possible in 60s and 70s. So I cannot insult my ancestors, my previous, yeah, I can't insult my aunt and uncles in the 60s and 70s and tell them, yeah, it's just as racist as now and Donald Trump is going to put us back to, no, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. Okay? You have to we live in an excellent time and we have to take responsibility for our own actions, okay? I was medical director of a couple of EMS crews. I'm a black guy. Okay? So I cannot claim that it's just as racist as before. Donald Trump's gonna make my life harder. I have to take full responsibility for my life, guys. The problem is when you put the power of how successful you're gonna be in life in the hands of whoever's president or whoever's in Congress, you leave yourself powerless. And if you leave yourself powerless, then you're never going to be successful. You're never going to make it in here. You're never going to make it in America. So, yes, he's president of the United States. Okay. 24 hours, let us cry, let us complain, but let's get over it and let's get back into it, guys. Let's be successful despite who's president. I guarantee, I guarantee those of you who share my same mindset are still going to flourish in the next 4 years, regardless of Donald Trump being president. Those of you right now who are still going to cry and complain, he's president, are still not going to be successful over the next 4 years with him as president. Truth be told, some of you guys, we were all happy Obama is president. Oh yeah, black president. And I still had certain people come to my emergency room because they have no jobs and still not even taking full advantage of some of the programs that Obama started. Still didn't get off their butts. Oh yeah, the programs are too expensive. They're too much in detail. But what did you was smoking weed all day. You can't blame Obama for Obamacare, how it didn't work. Well, all you're doing,